is Ryan Cam, and welcome back to the 1999 Project. As we close out the month of September, or well, get close to the end of September, a fact that just surprises me to no end. Even though it seems like a lot of the heavy hitters are done with for the year of 99, one thing I've learned from this project is just when you think there's a bit of a lull, there's another gem that just pops up out of nowhere. And so, with that in mind, I only have two movies to cover this week, so let's get to it. Starting off with just a very silly movie indeed called Blue Streak.
Martin Lawrence.
Tango El Gato Los Pantalones.
Blue Streak.
Blue Streak was directed by Lee Mayfield, who earlier in the decade had directed the Miracle on 34th Street remake, as well as Flubber, and the movie starred Martin Lawrence and Luke Wilson. It tells the story of a jewel thief, played by Martin Lawrence, who survives a botched heist trying to get a rather large diamond. He is arrested and sent to prison. However, before he got arrested, he stored the diamond in an unfinished building. That building becomes the new headquarters for the LAPD. And so he decides to impersonate a police officer in order to find the diamond. I believe, to the best of my memory, this is my second Martin Lawrence movie I've covered in this project, the other one being Life, which is a movie that started out slow but got good by the end. Like I said in the intro, this is a very silly movie. It's all right. It's really nothing to write home about, but this is a movie that just almost broke my brain in terms of logical leaps. Martin Lawrence is actually good in the movie in bursts. There are bits where he tries to be comedic a little too much. Like, he tries to get into the police station in one scene while wearing this wig with braids on it. I'll put up a photo here, but a wig with braids and these weird looking teeth and these glasses. I was just looking at this and thinking to myself, number one, this is probably offensive to somebody, and number two, somebody thought this was actually funny. It wasn't. And I actually think Martin Lawrence can be funny, but I didn't get what they were going with this. Luke Wilson is, I guess, supposed to be bad at his job. It's not entirely clear, at least from what I understood. Like, is he supposed to be the cop who's supposed to be good but is not? Or just is in the wrong place at the wrong time? It's hard to say. Their chemistry between Lawrence and Wilson is okay, but I feel like there's a different version of this movie that was left on the cutting room floor almost. In terms of the logic of the movie doesn't really make a ton of sense. I know 1999 was a bit of a different time and technology was nowhere near where it is today. Someone in that office must have had the ability to look at this character's face, look at him and go, hey, isn't that the jewel thief we arrested a couple years ago? For some strange reason, Martin Lawrence's character has the ability to bewitch, bewilder, and bother all of the LAPD cops to the point where they just forget that he's like this very famous jewel thief that they arrested. He doesn't really do anything to change his look or anything, minus the one scene where he dons the wig and all of that. He pretty much plays himself, and he just waltzes into this police station under a fake ID. The movie does make it clear paperwork is forged to make him seem legit. But there's just a part of me that just sat there going, this seems lazy. I would have loved if they had actually gave him like an actual false identity that he had to learn and that he had to commit to the bit for, and that he had to like gave a crap in order to actually see it through to the end. Not just waltz in there and be like, hey, I'm this cop. I've got medals to prove it and everything. I don't know. It just felt is a weird choice. You really have to turn your brain off to understand anything going on in the movie. The movie's not horrible. There's actually some pretty good action sequences in here. There are a couple times it made me chuckle. The performances are pretty good, but overall, this movie is very forgettable. I wasn't sure what I was expecting from this one, but at the end of it, I was just like, surely the LAPD mustn't be this dumb. Like, right? But to close off this episode, I have a returning guest on. from last week, as a matter of fact, Russell from Notorious by Chance, and we are going to be taking a look at a movie from a director, Sam Raimi, that is not horror. As a matter of fact, it's pretty much like a sore thumb in his filmography. It is For Love of the Game.
Don't go.
For Love of the Game was directed by Sam Raimi. Yes, that one. And the movie starred Kevin Costner, Kelly Preston, J.K. Simmons, and John C. Reilly, among others. It is based on the book written by Michael Shara, and it tells the story of a pitcher named Billy Chapel, played by Costner. He is he is very good at his job. He has had a long and successful career. However, he has missed a step for quite a few years. And so over the course of the first 15 minutes of the movie, we learn that his beloved Tigers that he's been a part of forever is being sold to a big company who doesn't want anything to do with him. He's about to be traded. His longtime girlfriend breaks up with him, and they're last place in their division, them being the Tigers. And they're facing the New York Yankees, who even in movie world, like the Yankees were just untouchable in the 90s. They just were. So what does Costner's character do? He just decides to casually throw a perfect game. And the movie chronicles that alongside learning about his past and what got him to this point. Joining me for this review, though, in a return engagement, I liked having him on so much I invited him back. It's Russell from Notorious by Chance. Russell, how you doing?
Good man. Glad to make a return appearance. Yeah, we had a great time discussing Star of Echoes, and looking forward to talking about For Love of the Game.
Yeah, let's talk about just the fact that this was directed by Sam Raimi. Like when you say that to a normal movie fan, they like, oh, Evil Dead, Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man trilogy anyway, like horror stuff. You don't think of contemplative baseball movie starring Kevin Costner. I had to look this up. It turns out this was not like he owed somebody a favor at a studio. No, he actually read the book, loved it, and was like, I'll do it. Why not? So he
Yeah.
actually said, yeah, let me have a crack at that. So it's like when you learn for the first time that Wes Craven directed movies like Music from the Heart starring Meryl Streep. There's a clear
Yeah.
disconnect.
No, I completely agree. I mean, we obviously know Sam Raimi from horror and obviously the original Spider-Man trilogy, and this is even before the first Spider-Man, which is crazy when you think about that.
Just a couple of years before, and it's funny to think that J.K. Simmons is in this movie, and then a couple of years later he's in Spider-Man as J. Jonah Jameson. It's just
Yeah,
crazy how that works out. But
yeah,
one of the facts that I learned in researching this, the role for the role for Billy Chapel was originally supposed to go to Tom Cruise. I don't think it would have worked with Tom Cruise because he was still young-ish enough to where Costner looks more older. And I'm not saying that he was an old man. Like he's older now. That's how
yeah.
time works. But Tom Cruise was still pretty young in this era, and he was still arguably in his prime. So this would have been, I don't think this would have hit as well as like in Costner did, even though he was nominated for a Razzie, but we'll talk about that in a second and how much of a crap move that was.
Yeah, I couldn't see Tom Cruise doing this. Obviously we've already seen Kevin Costner in baseball movies prior to. He does have a love of baseball, and I think that's why putting him in as Billy Chapel, I think was a perfect move, and not Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise really, has that. Obviously, I don't. He's never even been in a baseball movie. Not that I mean, unless I'm missing something, I'm not. I think Costner's a better choice.
Does Jerry Maguire count as a sports movie? Because
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sports agent. Yeah,
if it does, then that's the closest thing Tom Cruise has ever been to a sports movie. If we're being
yeah,
that or Days of Thunder, but like Days of Thunder is like the only traditional sports movie if you want to call NASCAR a sport, and I consider it a sport, but
yeah,
that's a whole debate for a whole nother time. Point I'm
yeah,
trying to get at is that Tom Cruise would not have been the good choice here. Kevin Costner honestly did a really good job here. I think because I watched all of his directorial efforts in preparation for Horizon and American Saga, I've gotten a new appreciation for Costner. There is a certain group of people who say Costner can't act, and he's very stoic, but that doesn't mean that he can't act, because he does a really good job here. And the fact that he got nominated for a Razzie is just complete nonsense, because he really does a great job here. He goes through all the emotions. He actually cries in a couple scenes, which I did not see coming. I haven't seen this movie in a minute. I'm glad I rewatched it for this, but he really carries his weight here. He does a great job.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not a throwaway role. Like you get a lot of Razzies are throwaway roles that, famous actors do, like, your Rock and Baywatch or other films like that. But this one was like a pretty solid performance. And the fact that he was nominated for a Razzie for this was just completely crazy. Um, yeah, I think he hits all the beats. This movie definitely has that, emotion, the drama, the suspense on, is Billy Chapel going to throw a perfect game? Um, yeah, I just think it's a well put together sports movie.
I picked up on this when I was rewatching it. Kind of reminded me a little bit of another Kevin Costner sports movie, if you want to call it that, called Draft Day, which came out in
Yeah,
2014. I don't want to say they're similar, but I think the main character has a lot going on and just decides, you know what? I'm just going to blow the roof off of everything that everybody knows. So kind of
yeah,
like what Sonny Weaver Jr. did in Draft Day. The similarities are there, I guess, is my point.
yeah. No, I you could absolutely see that for sure.
Draft Day is severely underrated. I recommend that highly. But as far as For Love of the Game goes, I think this is really effective. There are a few scenes, especially in the baseball sequences, where it shows when Kevin Costner's character focuses up and he's like, all right, I'm just playing catch now. And like he quiets everything, he cuts out all the noise and he focuses. And when he gets a strikeout, it's some of the most satisfying stuff you'll see in a sports movie because he knows that he's got a lot going on. He's got a lot of decisions to make, and he's just focusing up as much as he can. And he's just like, I'm just going to take it one batter at a time. And through his monologue, you see like he's got a relationship with most of the Yankees involved, like Sam Tuttle, who he just does not like. And then you got
Yeah.
the one player who was a Tiger but left for a better deal. And so the movie's very long. It's 2 hours and 18 minutes long. And there's some pacing problems, especially in the middle, which I'll touch on in a second. I think for me personally, when it focuses on the baseball stuff, that's where the strength lies. That's just me anyway.
Oh no, for sure. And I really didn't realize because I saw this when it came out into theaters. I played baseball throughout my whole entire childhood, so I loved baseball, and I remember seeing this in theaters, and definitely a lot heavier on the relationship aspect in the film than baseball. Which I mean, it's okay. And like you said, there are some pacing issues where we dive a little bit too deep into the relationship once in a while, and not enough baseball. I feel like. But I mean, outside of that, those are small nitpicks. Um, Definitely a pretty solid film. You probably could shave a good 25 minutes off of the film, though, for sure.
It doesn't kill the movie for me, but when the scene where he cuts his hand and he's in the hospital and Kelly Preston's like, this God,
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
America's pastime. I'm like, okay, like we could have cut this one out. Like okay, like give him an injury, fine. Like have him cut his hand. Okay, I can understand that. But there are several moments in the movie where things are implied but never shown. That's the one
yeah.
part you could have implied and be like, okay, like something must have happened to his hand. It must have been pretty bad enough to where it killed his confidence for a while. Not actually have him like bleeding out on a stretcher and like Kelly Preston having to like pull a doctor over and be like, help this man. And it just, I don't know, that part of the movie was just like, okay, the acting just took a dive in quality. I think for me personally, though, it doesn't really kill the movie. A lot of the a lot of the scenes where it involves heavy story like that, it really just comes down to mileage. and just how much you're willing to tolerate. For me, the movie's long. It really only feels long in like that 20-minute scene in like the hospital or in that little chunk of time. But then the rest of the time where it's focusing on his relationship with Jane's daughter, Kelly Preston's character, his daughter. I liked that. Like you learn more about his relationship with the player who goes to the Yankees, how the resentfulness towards the Yankees specifically comes from a very personal place. I don't know, the movie feels slow at times, but it doesn't really kill the movie for me because it's going somewhere. It doesn't it wastes time, but it takes its time, I guess. I could have worded that
Yeah,
better. I guess the
yeah,
point
it's more of a
is
yeah.
that it's laboriously paced. You notice it, but I feel like everything was done with an intention. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, it's more of a slower burn. Um, I guess I do like how some of the character interactions early on in the film come back, like the kid that his dad knew or whatever that's being called up from the Yankees. Like we see that again. The kid who uh, they kind of point the one scene where Kevin Costner has a heart to heart with the kid that the ball hits off of his head and it's a home run, and he gives him that like pretty much that like life lesson. Hey, you could go out there, let them make fun of you, or you could just chalk it up, take ownership of it and just kind of move on from it, and that comes back again. I do like a lot of that stuff. How it does. It's satisfying to see that stuff come back. It's not like it's just a throwaway scene.
Yeah, I did appreciate the callback there. There's a lot of scenes in the movie where you don't think much of, and then it gets referenced again, and you're like, oh, so the movie rewards you for paying attention, and I appreciate the spirit of that. Another thing I did appreciate was it's not just Costner's movie. You got J.K. Simmons, whose role is kind of limited but is good. Brian Cox plays the GM of the Tigers. He unfortunately has a pretty small role, but he is good. He has a great
Yeah.
scene with Costner in Costner's hotel room. Kelly Preston is good except for the hospital scene, but she can be forgiven for that. Um, I love the atmosphere, like Yankee Stadium. I've actually been in that stadium. That's the old Yankee Stadium. I was there the
Yeah.
year before they tore it down. And so, like, I've been in Monument Park, I've been all around that place. It's an atmosphere, I will say that. And I feel like there's a bit of like Yankee bitterness because it was the 90s. The Yankees were just like 96, 98, 99. They were just like tearing apart everybody. 98, they won like 170 something games. I could be totally wrong on that, but it was a high win total. I'll have to look it up
Yeah.
later. But that's what
Yeah.
happens when you have Derek Jeter, Jorge Posada, Hideki Matsui, and Mariano Rivera on your team. You're going to win a lot. That's all I'll say on that. But I love the movie captures the atmosphere of the stadium, and the stadium plays as much a role as the players do. There's fans who are
Yeah.
like you can't pitch a 10, Chapel. That's like a sex reference, right? I think. I
Yeah.
don't know. But I just love the environment. They could have just been fans just sitting there. But no, they actually become a character in and of itself, working against Chapel almost. It's like a
Yeah.
handicap.
Yeah. And then obviously having historic radio broadcaster Vin Scully, the announcer for a long time at the LA Dodgers, having him call the game, I think even sets up that baseball atmosphere. I think he has a perfect baseball voice. I really think that really encapsulates the whole entire environment on top of having having it set in historic Yankee Stadium, which I never got to go to. I've hit Dodger Stadium, believe it or not. I got to Dodger Stadium, and several others, but no, never have made it to Stadium. I would love to go Fenway. That's another one I have on a list. A lot of if any of our vacations kind of happen to go around certain areas and we can, I like to try to go visit different ballparks. But yeah, no, the Vin Scully, announcing the game and stuff like that, I really think sets the atmosphere up too. And like you said, and I think during that run they only had one World Series was in '96. Um, They still had, they were a juggernaut team win wise. Year after year, they'd be in the postseason. Um, so it's always satisfying to see me as an Indians fan. Uh, AL Central represent though with the Tigers and the Tiger. And it's funny because the Tigers are actually making a push for the wild card currently as we're recording this, which is kind of crazy. But no, I just think they do a really great job setting that atmosphere up for baseball with like I said, Vince Scully having it at historical Yankee Stadium. And I love the quote near the end of the film. The cathedral that is Yankee Stadium now belongs to a chapel. Love that. I think that's a perfect quote, man. It's such a great quote.
That
And
was perfect. Like Vince
yeah,
Scully like earned his pay with that one. He crushed that
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
loved some of the high drama. It wasn't just all like strikeouts or whatever or like or things like that. I loved the moment we were talking about where the ball bounces off the dude's head on the one hand, but then he actually catches it. Like
Yeah, Rob's a home run.
I love catches like that where it's like almost gonna go into the stands, but someone grabs it and is like, you're not going anywhere. Like I love a catch
Yeah,
like that. And then like the near misses where like Billy Chapel catches the ball, like it's like a really hard hit, and then he like catches it with his glove like this.
yeah,
And Scully was like, more like the ball caught Chapel or something to
yeah,
that effect. Like I loved that. There was diversity with the plays and like there's like a and like, oh, okay, we're still good. And the ending where it's slow motion, you're like, oh God, please get the ball. Please get the ball. We're
yeah,
one out away. Like
yeah.
I was sucked in. I really was.
Which is funny because we like know because we've seen it before. We kind of the ending and you know the result, but you're still on the edge of your seat because you think that there's a possibility that it might not happen. And I think that is just great storytelling by Raimi, great shot, great shooting, and kudos to the score. Basil Poldoris does the music and score, which I think is absolutely fantastic, and it really drives the emotion of the film.
Yeah, I agree. And some of his other credits include Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Destroyer, as well as Red Dawn and RoboCop. So he's quite underrated in the score department, Basil Polidorus.
Yeah, for sure.
But to kind of cap things, the movie is very long. It's 2 hours 18. You could have easily made it an even cut and dry 2 hours. But really, that's my only real gripe with the movie. It's very enjoyable. It's it's Kevin Costner in a baseball movie. So it's like harkening back to like earlier in the 90s with or 89, excuse me, with Field of Dreams and things like that. I'm going to give this on my scale a great rating. There's definite pacing issues for sure. It's not perfect, but when the movie's on, it really like it hit me right here. It hit me right in the feelings. It had a nice ending too. Like I love when the two like make up because I'm like, all right, they're definitely gonna make up, right? But then it's like the hotel the night after, and it's like, oh, she may have left, but then she misses her plane, and then they have that conversation, and it's like she's gonna miss the plane again, and then they finally kiss, and it just is a swell, and then the credits. Like
Yeah.
that's just I love that ending so much.
Yeah, because I mean, you're invested in the love story, though we do see a ton of it during the film, obviously. Um, it's one of those things where it's like, God, we've experienced so much of the love story throughout the film that yeah, it better pay off because for what is it really worth if we do not get the characters together? Um, Also love the fact that he signs the ball near the end of the film and tells the trainer to give it to, I believe it was at the owner's. Uh,
It was
was
Brian
it the
Cox's character.
Brian Cox's character? Yeah,
I said he was the GM, but I believe he was the owner, so that's my bad.
yeah.
The,
No,
the
but
owner's son.
basically says, uh, basically saying that for love of the game, he wants to retire after that, and you know pay homage to retiring a Detroit Tiger not wanting to go to San Francisco, where they were going to probably end up trading him. Um, I think that's a perfect way to like another perfect feel when you see the ball and you see what he inscribes on it. You get the feels on that. Yeah, but like I said, totally, definitely an underrated 1999 film again. And I think it's a really forgotten about baseball movie. When you think about baseball movies, you get your Bull Durham, your Field of Dreams, your Major Leagues, Trouble with the Curve. You get a lot. There's so many, baseball films out there, that this one's kind of, forgotten. But I think, fantastic movie. I think, Costner does a great job. I don't understand how he was nominated for a Razzie for this.
Yeah, very odd to me. I'm looking at Raimi's filmography right now, and this is a genuine oddity, like I said. Like you got just before this, he was doing The Quick and the Dead, which is a Western. That's another kind of standout because he usually does horror. But then you got A Simple Plan, then For Love of the Game, then a paranormal movie called The Gift, starring Cate Blanchett and Giovanni Ribisi, and then it's Spider-Man. So we're in a weird period in Raimi's career where is like the Evil Deads of the world are like in the past, and like he writes the script for Hudsucker Proxy and all of that, and it's like we're in a weird phase where it's like this weird middle of like he's done with Evil Dead, but he's not
Yeah,
done Spider-Man yet.
yeah,
So it's a pretty odd place we find Raimi in the late 90s.
it's like pretty much like a career limbo. He's just like right there in the middle, this vortex that is, you've already turned a page to the Evil Dead franchise, and now you haven't even started the next big franchise that would be the Spider-Mans.
And arguably he's more relevant nowadays because he's done Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. He's still kicking around out there. Like he
Yeah.
did Oz the Great and Powerful, which is just a bizarre movie. I like for mental note to myself for Wicked, review that movie, but that's a note to myself. But it's interesting. Like Sam Raimi is an interesting filmmaker because like did Evil Dead and Spider-Man trilogy, but then there's like these other ones you're like, wait, he directed that?
Yeah, it is
Also,
kind of crazy when you see.
note to myself, do a Raimi project one day. But I pass it off to all of you. What did you all think of For Love of the Game? Let us know in the comments. Love to read what you have to say. Russell, thank you so much for joining me as always. Just to announce it here and now, you'll be joining me for one of my Scary Mania 5 reviews. We're going to suffer through the remake of Psycho for your enjoyment. You may thank us later for the anguish that that's going to bring. But Russell, thank you so much. Like I said, Notorious by Chance, the podcast should, I believe, be up and running by now. Am I correct?
Correct. We dropped several days ago. Fight Club. Our finally our we're back episode, and then our next episode, I think we're tackling prequels, and I think we're going to be doing the Good and the Bad and the Ugly, which is my first time viewing it, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, dude, you are in for a treat. That movie is
Yeah,
awesome. But
yeah, I can't wait.
subscribe to the channel there, linked in the description. Go ahead and go ahead and give Russell and Chance a subscribe there. But as far as this channel goes, the 1999 project rolls on as we close out the month of September, and then it's on to Scary Mania and the rest of the year. There's never been a better time to subscribe to this channel, so go ahead and do it. But for Russell, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you all in the next one. Y'all take care.